Dr. the Honorable Nian Gatsby-Dolly, Minister of Education. The Honorable Lisa Morris-Julian, Minister in the Ministry of Education. Lenore Batista-Simmons, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education. Lisa Henry David, Chief Education Officer Acting. Dr. Peter Smith, Director Acting, Educational Planning Division. Officials of the Ministry of Education, members of the media, members of the viewing public, good morning. I am Matthew Gibbs, and I will be taking you through this morning's proceedings. Thank you for joining us this morning as we welcome you to the launch of the National Consultation on Education 2020. The Ministry of Education over the past few months has been committed to ensuring that the education our citizens receive is of the highest quality, is accessible, and is equitable to all. With the onset of COVID-19, we have been forced to rethink and examine the ways in which education has been delivered in Trinidad and Tobago. So today, we will be sharing with you our plans for the national consultation and how this will look as we engage all citizens of Trinidad and Tobago on the way forward for education. I now hand you over to Dr. the Honorable Nian Gatsby-Dolly, who will share with you the rationale for the national consultation on education.
The Honorable Lisa Morris-Julian, Minister in the Ministry of Education. Lenore Batista-Simmons, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education. Lisa Henry David, Chief Education Officer. Dr. Peter Smith, Director, Educational Planning Division. Officials of the Ministry of Education, members of the media, members of the viewing public, good morning. An investment in education is an investment in a nation's success in the future. Thank you for joining us today for the launch of the Ministry of Education's National Consultation 2020. The Ministry of Education, guided by tenets of access, equity, quality, and good governance, continues to adjust, revise, and adapt all aspects of the education sector to be of maximum citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. The National Consultation 2020 follows the National Consultation on Education that was hosted in 2016. Through that consultative process, the Education Policy Paper 2017 to 2022 was approved by Cabinet, paving the way for the implementation of the Ministry's policies, programs, and projects over a 5-year period. 2020 marks the halfway point of the implementation process of provisions in the Education Policy Paper and is therefore an opportune time to review what has been accomplished thus far, particularly in relation to key issues that have been at the forefront of public discourse and to make the necessary adjustments. As education systems globally reel from the impact and effects of COVID-19, the Ministry of Education has chosen to use this opportunity to ensure that the systems created for our stakeholders are the most relevant, effective, and necessary at this time. The closure of schools physically in March of this year forced all within the education sector to find new ways to rise to the challenges which have been presented. As the country maneuvered the new digital landscape for teaching and learning, the reality of the inadequacies of some of our existing systems became glaringly apparent. Systems, processes, and regulations originating in the post-independence era and even extending back into the 19th century have become embedded into the education system with attendant norms and associated issues which are unmanageable and therefore unsustainable at this present time. In the 21st century, Trinidad and Tobago, in an increasingly competitive global village, The relevance of these structures and institutions are continually being called into question, and as such, we seek to answer these questions through consultation. Our country is filled with persons who are knowledgeable and capable of giving ideas to take us to where we need to be. However, we need to be mindful at all times that there are also those vulnerable who are among us, and in all that we do, they must be accounted for. Now, more than ever, every system and sector within our country must be able to support every type of person, the vulnerable included. None must be left behind. So today we launch our national consultation under the theme, Transforming Education, It Takes a Village. We want to ensure that the persons who will be impacted from the policies have the opportunity to inform their creation. And facilitate an in-person process at this time, the consultation needs to take place. It needs to happen now, and we will make it available to everyone. Through a series of town hall meetings, surveys, stakeholder engagement sessions, through which citizens can submit written feedback, the National Consultation 2020 will explore 1. The conduct of the secondary entrance assessment and transition to secondary school. 2. The Concord Act. 3. Curriculum reform. 4. Blended learning. 5. The role of parents and guardians in education. 6. The role of the Teaching Service Commission. And 7. Teacher training and development. The type of education system that is needed for this country to thrive can only be created through the contributions of all of us. We are the village. The goal is not to create something that addresses only the challenges presented by COVID-19, but to create a modern, sustainable, resilient education system. I invite everyone to join us from Tuesday, November 10th, as we begin our town hall meetings where you can have your say. Transforming education, it takes a village. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gadsby Dolly. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we will be doing at the Ministry of Education for a national consultation on education. We will be transforming education, but we understand that it takes a village. We understand the importance of everyone having their say on a policy and programs that will be affecting them. Next, the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Education will be sharing her perspective on the national consultation.
Blessed good morning to all. Dr. the Honorable Nayan Gadsby Dolly, Minister of Education, the Honorable Lisa Morris Julian, Minister in the Ministry of Education, Mrs. Lisa Henry David, Chief Education Officer, Dr. Peter Smith, Director, Educational Planning Division, officials of the Ministry of Education, members of the media, members of the viewing public, and the Ministry of Education, the family, that is the Ministry of Education. In March of 2020, all of our institutions from early childhood, education, straight up to tertiary level, had to respond because of the COVID-19 restrictions, we were closed. The very week following, I was amazed to see the level of agility, innovativeness that was our school system and our education system as a whole. We responded. And today, we are seeing that our students are, in fact, in classrooms. They're in their homes that have now been changed into classrooms. Last week, the Prime Minister allowed us with respect to practicals so that our students, again, are able to go out. It means that our nation continues to move in the educational arena. The Ministry of Education's National Virtual Consultation education theme, Transforming Education, and change to the minister is that it was a global a community, is meant to open the conversation around several issues that are directing the educational landscape nationally, regionally, and internationally. Is the ministry required to reform, adapt, recreate its processes, policies, structures, and programs, or take advantage of this ever-changing world environment? Do we take a long-range view that focuses on the national development of a 21st century citizen, or do we continue to react? This is the opportunities that have been presented. And in the Ministry of Education coming out and opening this conversation, what we are saying is that while we have been responding to changes, we are now coming out to the nation of Trinidad and Tobago to engage in a conversation that will allow us to make the change that is required. So at this time, as the minister has indicated, we are opening up the conversations and we are listening, most important, and we'll be coming back to you because we need you. We need each and every person, just as you have responded to us from March to date, till the day that we're starting November 2nd. We have seen so many changes. We've seen family life changed. We've seen communities develop. We've seen persons adapting and becoming more literate with respect to the technology. And we need you on board, even as we begin to transform. So once again, thank you for viewing, and we hope that you indeed become part of this conversation that is transforming education. Thank you.
Thank you, Permanent Secretary Leno Batiste Simmons. Now, the Permanent Secretary made an excellent point that since March of 2020, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago have stepped up and shown their commitment to education. And we expect that there will be no change in that level of commitment as we engage in this consultative process. I would like to invite Chief Education Officer acting at the Ministry of Education, Mrs. Lisa Henry David, who will give an overview of how the consultation itself will be conducted.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. the Honorable Nian Gadsby Dolly, Minister of Education. The Honorable Lisa Morris Julian, Minister in the Ministry of Education. Mrs. Leno Batiste Simmons, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education. Dr. Peter Smith, Director, Educational Planning Division. Officials of the Ministry of Education, members of the media, good morning. The Honorable Minister and the Permanent Secretary have come before me and they have indicated what we intend to do, which is to get the suggestions from all of our publics, all of our stakeholders, and how we should take the Ministry of Education forward. My job today is to tell you, to narrow in, to zero in on how we are going to engage in this consultative process. So, as indicated before, we are going to start next week, Tuesday, the 10th of November, with our first town hall meeting, yes. So we have a number of different, we have a variety of ways in which we hope to engage the public. One of these is through town hall meetings, which will take place on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They will be for the next 3 weeks. And They will be hosted on TTT, Trinidad and Tobago Television, broadcasting live. The time frame, they will start at 7:30 in the evening. 7:30 and 7:30 to 9. So our first meeting on the 10th of November will focus on the conduct of the secondary entrance assessment and the transition to secondary school. So we'll invite the public to listen in, to call in, to email in, give us your views, your suggestions on how we should go forward with the transition of our children from primary to secondary. Following that, on Thursday the 12th, we will focus on the Concordat, which is the document which governs the relationship between the ministry and the denominational boards of education. The following week, Tuesday the 17th, we look at parental involvement in education, and this has become very important now that we have virtual classes and our homes have become our classrooms. On Thursday the 19th, blended learning, so it follows on. Blended learning will take focus. On the 24th, curricular reform. And on the 26th, we will look at the Teaching Service Commission and how it functions. In addition to these town hall meetings, we will also have 7 focus group meetings where we will engage our key stakeholders for their suggestions on the system. And we will also have 8 webinars with breakout sessions where we will garner the suggestions from all of our stakeholders. Added to this, we will have suggestion boxes. So we're going old school now. We'll have suggestion boxes at all of our education district offices, as well as the offices of all of our members of parliament, so persons can go into those physical spaces and put their suggestions for the reforms into those boxes. We will have a dedicated email address where persons can send their suggestions in. This email will be functional during our town hall meetings as well as throughout the consultative process over the next month. Persons will be able to send in their suggestions. We will also have questionnaires which persons can answer. Go onto the website. Even now, we already have the site for this consultative process up on the ministry's website, so you can even now start to participate. You'll be able to send in your comments, your suggestions, and we will be willing to take them. Our questionnaires and surveys that we have will be focused on members of the public as well as parents, and we will also have surveys for educators and students. These online surveys should be available from Monday the 9th of November right up until just before midnight on Friday the 4th of December. So you, our viewing public, all of our stakeholders, you will have an entire month in which to come up with your suggestions and to send them in to us so that we can now revise all of our policy documents and seek to include what you want, the vision that you have for our children. We will seek to include that in our policy documents going forward. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Henry David. Now, you will understand that the Ministry of Education has not just decided to mama guide the public of Trinidad and Tobago by saying we will be having a consultative process. We have thought out, we have planned, and we have put in place measures for everyone to be a part of this conversation. We want to hear from you, and we want to ensure that however it is you are able to deliver that feedback, be it through a written platform, a virtual platform, or call-in session during one of our town hall meetings, we want to hear from you. At this point in time, I now open the floor to the members of the media who may have questions for our panel.
Hi, good morning, Minister. Rihanna from Newsday here. I just have one quick question. I know that this forum is open to the wider public, and I also know that you've held meetings with official education stakeholders in the past. How much will their input be taken into consideration particularly for this forum?
It's going to be very important, as always. So the webinars, the focus groups, and so on, the town hall meetings, they are all invited, and so we want, of course, our primary stakeholders to give their comments, as they are the ones really in the trenches, and they'll be able to give very valuable feedback. So yes, very, very important, the wider public, as well as the usual stakeholders.
Good morning, Minister. Karen Kozer for the PTT. I know you said it's a virtual town hall meeting, but considering the limits on numbers gathering, how is this going to work per se for people? Will it be calling into the town hall meeting or sending their questions via social media? How's it going to work?
Yeah, they're calling, they are sending emails, and so their feedback is going to come in. Naturally, we can't gather as usual, so that's why we use the term virtual. There will be some panelists who would give some informed perspectives on the matter that's being discussed at the point in time, and then the public will be invited to email, they'll be invited to send comments on the Facebook as well as call in. So we get any comments and suggestions coming in from the public at these times. Dr. Smith, could I invite you to just give a little more detail on that?
Good morning, everyone. So as the Honourable Minister indicated, in terms of the town hall meetings, while it's being broadcast, we will have persons who will be monitoring social media, the phone lines, as well as the emails and the WhatsApp number, so that members of the public can send in their suggestions. And those suggestions will be fed to our moderator, who will then inform the panelists on the concerns and issues that members of the public would have raised at that point in time.
I'm going from Caribbean Lifestyle Communication. I'd just like to know how large will be the team be that will be regarding or disregarding the suggestions given to the public.
Let me just see with the issue of suggestions disregarding and regarding. I'll let the CEO and Dr. Smith deal with the strength of the team. The issue is not disregarding or regarding. The issue is formulating a report for the assimilation of the public, understanding these are the things that came forward, and based on the recommendations made, then it will be the decision of the government, of cabinet, to look at what was brought forward and how we move forward. So it's not a matter of, if you call in today and we don't like your suggestion, we're just not going to table it. Every suggestion, every recommendation, every comment that is made will be recorded, and so we will ensure that we have the substance of everyone's contribution. The decisions thereafter, that will be, again, decision of the cabinet. I'll ask CEO maybe to speak to the strength of the team and how many people will be involved.
The team involved with this consultation is made up of officers across several divisions of the Ministry of Education, led by the Director of Educational Planning. We have input from officers of the Curriculum Planning and Development Division, officers from the School Supervision and Management Division, as well as officers from the Educational Research and Evaluation. So, as indicated, we have 7 different areas of focus, and these will fall under the different divisions. So, another division or area that I forgot to mention was teacher training and development. What will happen is that you will see as it rolls out, as the consultative process rolls out, you will have different groups of persons focusing on the different areas of focus. So for example, the curricular reform team will be made up of officers from the Curriculum Planning and Development Division. When the suggestions come in, They will be taken from all of the various media. So at the focus group sessions, we will have rapporteurs recording what was said. We will have persons looking at written submissions from all the various media, whether it's in the suggestion boxes or whether the emails. All of that will come together, and the different teams within the separate divisions of the ministry will cull all this data and put it together. And at the end of the day, the team from the educational planning, which consists of about 8 persons, am I right, Mrs. Dr. Smith? Yes, about 8 persons. They will now take these and bring them, these suggestions, and bring them together in one comprehensive document, which will then be taken to the cabinet for their review.
Good morning, everyone. Marie Fletcher, Trinidad Express. Minister, I know you mentioned that this is not just because of COVID-19 and how the schools, the education system is adapting, but of course beyond that you're looking for. And of course, because of the pandemic, it would have changed the world as we know it and changed how children are learning. But I want to know, thus far, are there current emerging issues that would have prompted you all to have this sort of consultations besides COVID-19 and of course they adapting at home? But are there any stakeholders, parents, teachers, have they brought any issues to you thus far, and that's what prompted you to have this? That's one. Two, there are several issues. Go ahead.
But today with the one and then could ask the other one. With respect to issues, some of the issues we've raised would have come out in the last consultation as well as unresolved issues. The issue of SE, that's not a COVID issue, that's been existing a long time before that. The issues around the Teaching Service Commission and what comes out of that, that's been around for a long time. The issues of the Concord Act, there have been those discussions for many years. So some of the issues are long-standing issues that we review from time to time as a country, and sometimes it's not conclusive with respect to how we want to move forward. And some of the issues are definitely based on COVID-19, blended learning, the role of parents in education. These things have come out more strongly in this time, so it certainly is a time to take a look at that and to see how we move forward. And certainly, the events of 2020 would have impacted people's perception and their opinions on some of the long-standing issues that we've spoken about as well. So this is really an opportune time. It's the middle of the education policy paper, the middle of that implementation time, and it's also 2020, this year that has been so pivotal to change our mindsets, our paradigms, and so the time it's opportune. So it's a mix of the long-standing issues, the issues that have come up at this point in time.
Of course, there are several issues. I think you mentioned 7 things that you need to address. And it's a month where it's going to have all these town hall meetings. And of course, you can't give a definite date. But just to give an idea, how long do you think before action is taken? How long persons can get the feedback when things could be put in place? How long do you think?
So we'd expect that within a month the report should be generated, and thereafter, of course, it would be now to the recommendations to be put before cabinet and so on. So that's the kind of time frame. This is not necessarily today we have consultation, tomorrow things change, and it also depends on what comes out of the consultation and what the measures that we would like to adopt, and therefore how they can be phased over time. So within a month we should have the report, and then that should be going to cabinet for its consideration.
Final question. What is the most important thing you like to see change from this ministry?
The most important thing I'd like to see is us be responsive and resilient as a ministry, because we are responsible for the children of the country, which is the future of our country. So I would like to see the ministry be agile, and I'd like to see the ministry be predictive in terms of how we deal with it, and that's why this consultation is so important, so that as we adapt ourselves now, I would like to see that there's never a situation in the future that floors us as 2020 did.
Of course, the wider public would include students themselves. who have been very vocal in the past few weeks, specifically CXC students. Will they have a dedicated platform or time to address their concerns?
Yes, students, there is an actual questionnaire that's based just for students, and so we are looking forward to students being able to participate. That was a feature of the 2016 consultation, and certainly that is something we would want to see continue. And so we encourage all our citizens to call in when we have the programs and so on, so that we would get the benefit of our student involvement. Very important to get that.
Morning again. I heard you mentioned vulnerable groups. Could you give a little more detail on when you say vulnerable groups? What, in specifics, who are you referring to? What areas?
With respect to vulnerable groups, we refer to children who have special needs. We refer to children who are in situations where they have real challenges. For example, students who live in homes who don't have the benefit of their own home. We refer to students who live in areas that we call hotspots, that are crime-ridden and so on. So those are the students who we would expect to be vulnerable.
If there are no more questions, the Minister started this morning by stating, an investment in education is an investment in the future of our nation. And that is what the Ministry of Education is going forward with at this point in time, ensuring that we are investing in the future of our nation. Through this consultation, under the theme, Transforming Education, It Takes a Village, we will be ensuring that every voice is heard and everyone has the opportunity to represent what they believe in education in Trinidad and Tobago. Through a cross-functional, multidisciplinary panel at every town hall meeting, through our virtual engagement, and every survey that persons fill out and take, the Ministry of Education will collate, gather, and deliver to the public a comprehensive report on what the Ministry of Education intends to do going forward to ensure that education is the business of everyone. Everyone receives what they are entitled to, because as we know, everyone has the right to an education. So, to the members of the viewing public, you may join the Ministry of Education by visiting the moe.gov.tt/NCE 2020 website for all the information on the 2020 National Consultation on Education. Remember, transforming education, it takes a village. My name is Matthew Gibbs, and it has been my pleasure to facilitate this morning's proceedings. Do have a great day.